Good evening, councillors, members of the community and members of the press. Welcome to our August Ordinary Council meeting. I'm Lorraine Young. I'm the Mayor at the Town of Cottesloe and I'll be the presiding member of the meeting this evening. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of the land where we're meeting this evening and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. For the members of the public in attendance, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed so that there is the chance that you will be captured on that live stream, which will be viewable on the town's website. I'd also like to draw attention to the disclaimer on the inside of the agenda pack and draw attention also to the rules of procedure that govern the way that our meetings are run and in particular the provisions that relate to public participation. They can be found on the town's website under our local laws tab. Welcome. I have no announcements without discussion. I'm going to move to public question time and I'd remind, or for new members of the public who haven't appeared here before, it's 3 minutes per speaker. There is a timer that will show you how you're tracking for time and if you could just confine your questions without unnecessary preamble or expressions of opinion. If you wish to speak and express opinion, you can do that in public statement time. So I'm going to call to the, if you could come to the microphone and give us your name and address, and if public questions, if you could tell us the item that you are speaking to, if it's on the agenda. You aren't confined to items on the agenda for public question, but public statements are confined to items on the agenda. So, on that note, I'll ask Miss Diane Trouchet. Diane, if you could just come to the microphone, thank you.
I don't know what to do. I think I state my name, right?
Yeah, and your address and the item.
Diane Trouchet, 14 Athelston Road, Cottesloe. First, I've had some correspondence. I'd like to thank Steve Cleaver for answering some of the questions that are going to be posed tonight. It's made me reevaluate number 1, which was, have the organisers applied to close Marine Parade for the concert next year, the electric concert? So my question now is, in view of the disruption of road closure caused to Cottesloe residents, will the council tonight consider approving the concert on condition that the Marine Parade remains open to all traffic for the duration of all activity relating to the concert? I've seen the plan and the whole of Marine Parade is listed for the public toilet area again. Very ugly, very disruptive and takes away all the parking, including the disabled parking. Shall I read the other questions?
Yes. Yeah.
The other question, what physical plan of the barricading of the area to be provided by the organisers? Will a physical plan? Will the barricading extend along the foreshore of the Sharknet swimming area as last year? If so, what will be the dates of the closure for Marine Parade and the main beach and the hours of closure each day? Will a layout plan be provided by the organisers as to the placement and number of unsightly and unhealthy portaloos? Well, it seems that's already decided. Will the noise monitoring be measured at the nearest residence to ensure the concert complies with noise regulations? I don't hear the noise, so that's not one of my points, but I know it's a lot of other people's. Will the system be in place to instantly contact the organisers to reduce the noise that exceeds the statutory levels? Will a record of the decibel levels measured be publicly available? Is the venue too small for the concert without closing Marine Parade? Will the event organisers notify the tourist operators in advance of the disrupt? I saw last year tourist buses arriving with all the people eager to have their paid-for visit, and they were blocked off. Couldn't go down on the beach, couldn't stay in the bus and go away. Will the event organisers notify... Oh, I've read that one. Has the environmental hazard of any intended fireworks been addressed? I know last year there was some complaint about all the fireworks falling into the water because they held it on the groin. Thank you for answering already some of these questions, but I want all councillors, please, to be aware of what is going on with this concert. I don't figure there's any gain, it's just the commercial entrepreneurs who get the gain.
Thank you, Mrs. Truchet. And I'll ask Mr. Cleaver to read out the answers to the questions so that
Read out the answers.
No, I'll ask Mr. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. What I will say, your first question, which changed slightly, was will council consider approving it conditional on the closing of Marine Parade? That will be a decision for council, and that's part of what we're going to be...
Shall I read that again?
No. I caught the question, but what I'm saying is that council will be making a decision on that. So I'll ask Mr. Cleaver to address the rest of your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. So the question, have the organisers applied to close Marine Parade? And the answer is yes, it's part of the application. Will a physical plan be provided with organisers? Yes, that's in the attachments in tonight's agenda on page 110. Will the barricading extend along the foreshore of the shark swimming area as at last concert? No, the barricading ends at the southern end of the boat shed stairs, and that's shown in the attachment on page 110 in the agenda attachments. What are the dates of the closures and the hours of each day? That's part of the agenda item for council's consideration tonight. Will the layout be provided by the organisers as a placement and the siting of the toilets? Yes, that's shown in the attachment on page 110. Will noise monitoring be measured at the nearest residence to ensure concert complies with the noise regulations? The noise is measured at the mixing desk as per the Regulation 18 approval under the Environmental Protection Act. Will a system be in place to instantly contact the organisers to reduce noise that exceeds statutory level? Yes, the applicant is required to have a noise management consultant on site in addition to the noise management plan, and the council also has environmental health officers that are authorised under the Environmental Protection Act noise regulations. Will a record of the decibel levels measured be publicly available? No, noise pollution is a complex calculation, not just decibels. There are influencing factors and adjustments for traffic and annoyance factors. The town employs environmental health officers that are authorised under the Environmental Protection Act as inspectors / authorised officers. The authorised noise officers will be working during the event to monitor compliance with the noise management plan. Question 9, is the venue too small for the concert without closing Marine Parade? The answer is the application is to hire the foreshore and closure of Marine Parade. Will the event organisers notify tourist operators in advance of the disrupt or the event? The answer is no. Has the environmental hazard of intended fireworks been addressed? The answer is fireworks and their associated safety and environmental plans are approved by the Department of Mines, Energy, Mines and Industry Regulations. The town is consulted for that approval. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Were there any further public questions?
Yes, sorry.
I have Mr. Barry Johnson. Mr. Johnson?
Good evening. My name is Barry Johnson. I live at 100 Forest Street in Cottesloe. I've just got one very quick question. I am a member of the Seaview Golf Club. I'm what they call a 9-hole member. I play 1 day a week, and that's quite enough for me, to be honest with you. It's my understanding that the town of Cottesloe owns the building at Seaview Golf Club. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, my question is, should plans for approval to do anything at with the building, what will or does the council intend to make a contribution like it has to Anderson Field and some of the other facilities that are placed around the town of Cottesloe that are basically not used? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I don't know the facilities that you're referring to that are not used, but you'll be aware that the town is consulting the community on sort of aspirations and ideas and what the community would like to see at the Seaview Golf Clubhouse. And at the end of that process, I think we'll be closer to being able to provide an answer to what's going to happen there, which will answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
I can just say, if you go up to the playground that was built, the biggest crowd I saw there was the day that you opened it. And since that day, I reckon we would count 3 people per week, if lucky, that use a huge facility that costs a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you. I presume that you'd be referring to the the railway stream, yeah. Thank you. Mr. Mellor.
Good evening, councillors, members of the media, members of the public and the administration. I refer to my name's Stephen Mellor of Graham Court, Cottesloe. I refer to the issue of live streaming of meetings. I was pleased to see my suggestion that resolutions made from behind closed doors will be read out, regardless of whether or not there are any members of the public present. So people online will have the benefit of the resolution being notified. My question is, since live streaming and video recordings of meetings have started to be made available, can you explain why agenda forum meetings are not included? Question 2, as the meetings have been live streamed, why does it take sometimes longer than 2 weeks to upload the video recordings to the town website? Question 3, as electors' meetings are unlikely to be heard in the council chambers, will the live streaming policy be amended so that any Memorial Hall meetings will be included? Whatever the technical difficulties, I'm sure can be surmounted. Question 4, was the budget special council meeting held last week on the 20th of August live streamed? There's no recording yet on the website when I left Melbourne this morning. I asked a public question at the March 2024 OCM about the loss of rental income. Oh, this is now on Barchetta, sorry. I asked at the public meeting, a public question in March 24 about the loss of rental income from the relief period for the new lessee at Barchetta. My question was, as this is through to 30th of June 24, what is the forward budget loss of income for the following financial year? The response I was given was, there is not expected to be a budget loss of income in 24-25. Can you confirm that there will be no income loss expected in the current financial year, as stated? If not, what is the likely total rent relief given for both the last and this current financial year by the town based on the lease terms? Has there also been a loss of rates income? If so, what is the total rate relief given for both last and the current financial year by the town? Re the Seaview Golf Club house. I didn't hear the answer. What was given was whether the town owned the building. Can you confirm that the club, the golf club, paid for the original construction of the clubhouse? If it was, as I believe it was, what is the legal position for the town to assume development control of any redevelopment? Will the Cottesloe Tennis Club be under the same redevelopment control of the town when their lease is renewed? And the same for the Northcote Life Saving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mellor. I think the questions are quite wide-ranging, and I'm going to take them on notice. Thank you.
Well, may I point out to you, if I may, that clause 2.1 of the live streaming policy says, this policy applies to all agenda forums, electors' meetings, ordinary and special council meetings held in the council chamber.
Thank you. I will point out that under the local government regulations, the town is not required to live stream. That's actually an innovation that we've introduced in the interests of openness and transparency, and we've included that in our budget. Most, I would imagine, local governments of our size don't live stream as at the present. So thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mellor, I was just, thank you, we're not...
Mayor, could you just point out, I believe the new regulations in January 25 will require it?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Mellor, but at the moment we're not required to. We have been endeavouring to get towards that stage. We are now live streaming. We're not obliged to. My understanding is that that is the position and will remain the position for the time being. But your answers to your questions will be provided in the usual way. Now I have Anne-Marie Frasica.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Frasica. I live at 22 Elizabeth Street, and I'd like to share some feedback on the North Street store parking and Verge proposal put forward on the agenda. Just for context, 22 Elizabeth Street is about 100 meters from North Street Store, so I certainly see all of the extra traffic, but I'm not within hearing distance of the waiting crew for their coffees. In short, I'd like to ask the council to reconsider its approach on item 3 regarding landscaping of the Verge. In short, I'd like the council to consider constructing a thoughtful waiting area rather than expressly prohibiting or designing so that people can't have a comfortable place to wait. It seems to me that if we are allowing a bakery to operate in that space, and if we hope it to be successful, we must accommodate its customers a waiting area. And I'd point out that many of those customers are residents of the street, myself and my small children included. Almost weekly, we are waiting at the coffee window at North Street Store. In the summer, it's in full sun, completely unsheltered, and directly on the footpath where other children are trying to scoot, bike, or walk past. I'd also point out that older folks in the neighborhood might be waiting with absolutely no place to rest or to be sheltered. If we're going to make an investment in converting that parking to a Verge, which I fully agree and feel that those parking spots are dangerous, let's make the most of that investment. I know the goal is not to encourage people to stay, given the zoning requirements, but there are many smart people in this room, and I trust there are creative solutions we could come up with to accommodate a more comfortable, safe waiting area, and also not to go against the zoning requirements. I'd also just like to reset the tone that coffee goers are not pesky or a nuisance, as it looks like was in the reporting and maybe in some of the discussions had to date. They contribute to a vibrant, walkable community, which I think many residents value. For sure, I bought on Elizabeth Street knowing North Street Store was there, and because North Street Store was there, I wanted to live within walking distance of a coffee shop. That was either North Street Store, Kirkwood, or Daisy's. And so when I saw a spot on Elizabeth, I jumped at it. I fear that if we have an adversarial stance toward the store, and if we cannot accommodate the needs of their customers, that we will lose a successful business that in fact draws people to our neighborhood. And I personally would find that to be a shame. I have spoken to several neighbors on my street who agree, I would like to see the parking resolved, but also to have a more comfortable waiting space. And I'd ask you to weigh our voices in support, just as you weigh voices concerned about the noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frasica. Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you. That's all the public questions. We have any public statements? That was the statement. Okay, thank you. Attendance. I'd like to mention that our CEO, Matthew Humphrey, is unwell and is... sorry, what did I say?
Matthew Humphrey.
Oh, yeah, gosh. That was... Goodness me. Sorry. Our CEO, Matthew Scott, is unwell and he is not able to be here this evening, and Mr. Steve Cleaver is filling in that role. We have no apologies. We have 2 councillors on approved leave of absence. That's Councillor Sadler and Councillor Irvine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And apart from that, we have a full house of elected members. Were there any other staff?
Mayor, we just acknowledge Paul Nielsen, the Manager of Planning, is here to assist us with some of the items tonight.
Thank you. Hello, Paul. Do we have any applications for leave of absence? Councillor Thomas?
I'd like to request leave of absence for the 24th of September, please.
Sorry, the 24th of September, just for the meeting, yeah.
Well, I'll be away that week.
Okay. So you can move that, and I'll move that Councillor Thomas be granted leave for the 24th September OCM. Councillor Harkins, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Were there any other applications for leave of absence? No, thank you. Declarations of interest. I'm going to start with my own and then go round the room. I have declarations of interest in respect of item 10.1.2, the Anderson Pavilion matter. I have an impartiality interest. My children played for the Cottesloe Magpies for quite a long period, but that was some time ago, and in any event, I can make the decision on the item on merit. I also have an interest in respect of item 10.1.8, the North Street parking changes. My adult son is now returned to study and is cohabiting and is employed by the business operator there. So I will leave the room during that item and will not take part in any of the debate, discussion or voting. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Heath?
Similarly, 10.1.2, the Anderson Pavilion licence. My children have played football for the Magpies for the last 15 years and probably will for the foreseeable future, but I can make my decision impartially on the facts available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Any other? Councillor Bulbeck?
I'm a customer at the North Street store, but believe I can make my decision impartially.
Any? Okay. Right. Confirmation of minutes. That item is on page 6. And we are looking to confirm as a true and accurate record the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday, 23rd of July 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bulbeck, seconded Councillor Heath. All in favour? That's unanimous. And then that the minutes of the special council meeting held on Friday, 2nd of August 2024 be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Thomas, and a seconder? Councillor Bulbeck. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We have no presentations, deputations or petitions, so I will move to the officers' report. Oh, we'll go through actually first. Moving to the officers' report, I will call out the items that have been called up for discussion and debate by councillors. Item 10.1.1, Disability Access and Inclusion Plan 24-25. Item 10.1.2, Anderson Pavilion Third Party Use Licence Agreement. Item 10.1.5, Event Application Electric Island 5 and 6 April 2025. And item 10.1.8, North Street parking changes. And in addition, the following items will be discussed in debate. Item 13.1.1, supply and laying of asphalt and road profiling rescindment. 13.1.2, 126 Railway Street Regulation 17 Licence Agreement. Item 13.1.3, Tender 5 of 2024 Civil Concrete Works Tender Recommendation. And item 13.1.4, Lifeguard Services Tender. In addition, we have an item of a late item of an urgent nature introduced by officers. Do we have the report? Okay. Have I got a hard copy? Sorry. Sorry, Jacqueline. We have item. This will be item. Hang on, where are we? 12.2. The Chief Executive Officer Performance Review. So that will be called up as well. The remaining items, which are item 10.1.3, monthly financial statements 1 July 23 to 30 June 24, 10.1.4, parking and parking facilities amendment local law, 10.1.6, Perth Natural Resource Management NRM Coastal Program Partnership Memorandum of Understanding 24-25, 10.1.7, Seaview Golf Club Clubroom Redevelopment Community and Stakeholder Engagement Plan and Building Condition Assessment Report. So those items that I've just mentioned as not being called up, that I've just called out then, I'd like a mover that those items be put to the meeting en bloc. Councillor Wilinko, seconded. Councillor Thomas, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. And for members of the public who might not have been here, the items that are...
Excuse me, just 10.1.4 is an absolute majority, so we need to pull that one out.
10.1.4? Okay. Yeah, okay. So we had a mover... Was Councillor Wilinko moving the en bloc and Councillor Thomas seconding? So that's all of the ones that I called out with the exception of 10.1.4. So I'm going to put that to the vote. All in favour of... thank you. And for members of the public, the items that are passed en bloc, that means that they're passed in the terms of the officer's recommendation without debate. So going back to the officers' reports, I'm going to start with 10.1.1, Disability Access and Inclusion Plan 24 to 29, and that's on page 8 with the officer's recommendation on page 10. Councillor Harkins. You're moving the officer's recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bullbeck. This item was called up. Did anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I stuck my hand up.
I,
Short, would you like me to speak to it? Short and sweet, simply to say thank you to the Manager of Community and Customer Service for altering the pictures and making them Cottesloe-centric. That was the only reason, to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Councillor Bullbeck, did you want to speak to that? Okay. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. So 10.1.2, Anderson Pavilion third-party use licence agreement. That's on page 11. The officer's recommendation is on page 15, but Councillor Harkins. Thank you.
I have a deferral. I have a councillor motion, a deferral motion.
Can you read your motion, please?
Yes, certainly. It's a deferral motion that council defers consideration of this matter and does not accept bookings from third parties for the use of Anderson Pavilion during the current football season, pending a report from the administration being brought to the October briefing forum at the end of the football season on the scope to further refine usage arrangements, noting the feedback from the Magpies Club and the issues raised by the terms of the draft licence and the intention behind previous council resolutions setting out priority of usage of the facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Harkins. I'm happy to second that.
Just to confirm to everyone, I did slip in the word October there, so just make a note that, Mrs Pilkington, there is an extra word in there, the word October.
So, Councillor Harkins, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I do. So, going through the rationale, I certainly want to commend the administration for the work they've done on setting up this licence, and I want to acknowledge that it actually came from councillors that we should accept bookings for the pavilion to raise revenue. So I don't want to take away from the work the administration have done, and I acknowledge that it was council who encouraged that. However, subsequently we have discovered that Magpies have given us feedback that it's not particularly realistic to be renting out that facility during the football season to third parties, because it possibly will create issues for the clubhouse, for the junior football club, leaving their memorabilia. They've bought a coffee machine, etc. The funds that we're likely to get from renting it during the winter season are probably negligible anyway, because it's going to be low. Most people would want to hire that facility, as you'd imagine, during the summer season. So I can't imagine we'll be losing a great deal of revenue. And if we did rent it out for a couple of $100 or something, we've got cleaning, we've got complaints, we've got the issues and things that could arise. I'm not saying they will, but it could arise. The junior football club volunteers, as we've been told, do need to access the clubhouse during the week if they want to restock the pies in the fridge or clean it or whatever they want to do. So being heavy-handed and saying you're not allowed to go in there without permission and things could be problematic for a junior footy club. It's important to realise that, yes, even though the Anderson Pavilion was funded by us and through grants, it came about because the Magpies Football Club contacted the council over numerous years, have been trying to get that club refurbished and upgraded. So it's important for us to be mindful of that. The unique thing about the Magpies Junior Football Club, and I'm sure the Mayor and Councillor Heath would reiterate that, is that vast majority of the families are Cottesloe residents, because it's a junior footy club. You're not going to travel out. There's junior footy clubs everywhere. So unlike a lot of the clubs in our town that we're discovering when we're going through leases, that there's sometimes only 30% and so on, the Magpies Club is quite unique in that it is almost all Cottesloe families, and there's about 300 of them. The other issue is the issue between the Roosters, which is the adult club, and the Magpies, which is the junior club. And I think we just need to clarify who's got first dibs on it and who's getting permission from whom to run it. So that could be clarified if we just pause for a moment. couple more seconds, and perhaps we just shorten the season so they don't need it. They only need it from sort of March, April into, I think it's September. So we still can look at hiring it out, but just not for that big season. The reason I put in October into the actual motion is that by then the winter season's over, we'll get a good perspective on how it's all working. They've bedded in a bit, and the fact that the lease is not signed they haven't had a lease since they've been playing at Anderson Pavilion for the last 30 years or something. So we can keep going the status quo and re-look at it with all of these issues and the feedback that we've received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkins, and I'll just very briefly say I acknowledge, as Councillor Harkins has, that the sort of direction of trying to generate income for the town from the club by using it year-round was council-driven, and I imagine that it might be somewhat frustrating for the administration, but I really do think that we are potentially really making a bit of a problem for ourselves, and I think that we can woe it up for the time being. That, as Councillor Harkins said, the Magpies have used the clubhouse there for many, many years without any formal arrangement, so I think that we can woe it up. I am concerned that it was previously a clubhouse. We have now provided a new facility, but without flexibility and without some kind of assurance about use. We could actually end up really giving with one hand and taking away with the other. It really isn't much of a clubhouse if you are running it on such a tight time frame, and you have to be in and out, and you can't use it outside of particular hours. And I can foresee quite a lot of problems with the sort of bookings that we might want to put there would probably be more of the children's birthday party type things, and I don't know how we would deal with, the potential mess when the club's coming in at very early the next morning, and it's fine to say that that can be dealt with by complaining to the town. That's going to take up administrative resources, but it's not going to resolve the problem for the volunteer parents that rock up potentially to a pretty messy clubhouse. So I really do think we can woe it up until we have a briefing and look a little bit closer at what we're doing here. Did anyone want to speak against the motion? Councillor Wilenko?
I'd like to speak against it because I'm not really clear why we haven't really addressed, to what extent we haven't addressed their concerns. It seems to me that what we're approving here is an amendment to the license agreement. We've already agreed that they can use it between 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday, subject to the Roosters agreeing. We've agreed to access to the assigned storage areas outside that agreed period, so anytime they want to. What we seem to be disagreeing with is their requirement that we seek their permission prior to hiring out the pavilion to third parties during the period of agreed use. In other words, from 3 to 9 p.m. on Monday to Thursday, or as I understand it here, on Saturday or Sunday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But as the officers point out, we're not going to rent it out to people during that period of time anyway. So they don't need to have some kind of, that we need to seek their permission. And then it says for access to other areas outside the exclusive, well, I'm not sure why they should need that access to other areas except their storage area. So I'm not clear what it is that we're actually trying to defer for, because it seems to me we've got pretty close agreement here. And this just delays things yet another month or two before we actually agree to go ahead. So I'm not understanding from reading this how far apart we are that it requires us to send the officers back to have another discussion with them, and where that's really going to end up anyway. Thanks.
Councillor Thomas?
I I would like to speak against it, and following from Councillor Wilinko's comment, I think I would foreshadow an alternative which is an amendment to the officer recommendation with an additional clause to not take bookings until October and further consider other matters related to that.
Did anyone else want to speak to the motion? Well, actually, we've had 2 against. Does anyone want to speak for the motion? Councillor Heath?
Yes, I just wanted to speak for the motion. I just think let's not rush this. We haven't even finished the first season of football down there, and the volunteers have been just busy settling into the new arrangements. And I think they've asked that there's no parties and hiring out during their time, and I totally think it's unfair for volunteers to turn up early on a Sunday morning and they're flat out trying to get the ovals in shape and getting all the goalposts out, and they've got rubbish from a children's party the day before. So I think just a little bit more time now that the season is finishing in the next week or 2, just so we can get our priorities and arrangements between the town and the Magpies Club would be really beneficial and necessary.
Councillor Bulbeck?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to support that we've only got a couple of months max to go. So let's pull back a bit and try and sort out what's going on. And try and sort out if we can sort out the problems. My understanding from reading what's quite complicated proposal is that there's only Friday anyway that's available for hire outside all the times that either of the football clubs are using it, but I might be wrong about that. But one thing I've given that would then open up the summer season for us to consider using the area, whether we also need to get feedback from the cricket club, because if we end up not being able to use it because of the cricket club using it, we'll end up not being able to have use it in the way we anticipated. So I just would like that to be part of the workshop as well.
Anyone else want to speak? Councillor Harkins, you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll just sum up by just discussing a couple of little things. Councillor Bulbeck's point is very valid. We have heard that the cricket club are talking to the administration, so that's another reason why we can pause and just to see what the cricket club are proposing. There's really no delay because there's not a delay of anything to happen. So if it's not signed, it doesn't really matter. Nothing's been signed for the last 20, 30 years. So it's okay, it's still running. The big thing about the access is not just their storage, is that they've specifically said they need to access the fridges to put the pies or whatever it is, not just for the storage of the footies. So if it's going to make the club run more smoothly, then that's something I think we could weave into a lease agreement. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put the alternative motion to the vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Harkins, Heath, Bulbeck and Mason, and Mayor Young, and against, that's Councillor Wilinko and Thomas. So I declare that one passed. Next item, just bear with me. Is item 10.1.4, Parking and Parking Facilities Amendment Local Law. That's on page 20 with the officer's recommendation on page 22. Did anyone want to speak against this motion? Anyone speaking against? Well, not if no one's going to speak against it, it can go straight to the vote. Well, I'll move it, and someone else, and then I'll show you the section in the standing orders later. Councillor Harkins. So nobody's speaking against it. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. You might be right. I might have been jumping the gun there. Event application, Electric Island. So it's 10.1.5 on page 23, with the officer's recommendation on page 27. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Heath, and a seconder, Councillor Mason. Councillor Heath?
I think we've talked about this in workshops, and I think we all understand the situation of the Electric Island event, and the important thing to note is that we actually do get quite decent money out of it. It's the 30,000 plus the fees, etc. So some people love it and they can enjoy it, and we can get the money. And then also for the people who might not think that this is the best use of Cottesloe Beach, it's only for one weekend. We get some income in which can go towards other important things in our town, like planting trees, and it really is just for one time. We've got very stringent arrangements around noise and crowds. I think we've learned from previous years, and I think it will be a positive occasion for the town in general. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Mason, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, please. I would further add to Councillor Heath's comments that we welcome this event. I think it was very well attended by local residents of all ages. There were many local families and children enjoying the atmosphere of the event without officially attending the event, and picnicking and swimming just north of Indiana. So I think the broader community really got a wonderful atmosphere out of the event on both nights. I attended with my young children. It felt very safe and celebratory and joyous. And I look forward to attending with my family again next year. And I also think that having the fireworks is a lovely special occasion. So I think there's a lot for people to enjoy in the community, not only the people that are buying tickets.
Thank you. Councillor Harkins?
I have an amendment that's been circulated.
Rightio, hang on. Thank you. Can you read your amendment?
Yes, it is exactly the same as the officer's recommendation, but in point 2, just add the words access to the beach including sand area from the Indiana steps to the groin area and disabled access to be maintained at all time. Extension of the event fencing into the water is not permitted.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Thomas, you go ahead, Councillor Thomas.
Should I speak to that?
Yep.
You all know that I bad on about this, but the amendment is simply to ensure, and it's really for the officers to really, so that on the day they've got this to back them up, to ensure that Cottesloe residents, ratepayers and visitors can access the beach area completely along the water line during the setup and the concert. So that Mrs Trochet spoke today about being able to swim in the shark barrier. So this will enable, if it happens to be hot like it was this year, people will be able to swim in the ocean without having to go around a fence or something. And it ensures access along the sand area parallel to the concert fence line, and that in no way will stop people buying a ticket to the concert. No one's going to, most people probably won't read the council resolution, so they're not going to not buy a ticket to the concert. So from the organisers' point of view, they won't be losing a cent. It's just going to be easy for all the residents. If they want to go and picnic down there, they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas?
I will reserve my right to speak later.
Did anyone want to speak against the amendment? Well, I'm going to put it to the vote then. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. And back to the substantive motion. which was moved by Councillor Heath, seconded by Councillor Mason. Did anyone want to speak against? I'm going to put the substantive motion to the vote. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is item... where are we? I think I lost it. Hang on. Yep, it was hiding there. 10.1.8. I've declared a financial interest in respect of this item, so I'm going to move. I will have to vacate, and in the absence of Councillor Sadler as Deputy Mayor, under 5.6 of the Act, I move that Councillor Harkins preside over this section of the meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas, all in favour? That's unanimous. And I'm going to suggest, because we're recording and live streaming, you come up here, please. And I will join you all later. There you go, enjoy.
Thank you.
Chair, we have three
Yes.
alternate motions for this,
We
for this
do.
item.
So there was an alternate councillor motion that was sent in by myself, but I will not be putting that up in light of information from LGISC. So that is taken off the table. And then we have two amendments, and by usual practice, it's the one that was first received, which was the amendment from Councillor Mason. But we first of all have to put the officer's recommendation, propose the officer's recommendation. Do I have someone who would like to propose the officer's recommendation? Okay, I will. Anyone seconding it? Councillor Thomas, thank you. Regarding the, I'll speak to the officer's recommendation. So we have since learnt during the week from our insurers that due to the sightline issues at the North Street, at the intersection of North Street and Elizabeth Street, there are issues that, as it's been brought to our attention by the administration, it would be pertinent to us to take heed of those. Point two makes sense that obviously if the bays are being removed, they'll need some sort of either signage, yellow line, whatever it is, to prevent cars parking on that section of North Street. Point three is that the verge would be reinstated, but not as a formal customer waiting and alfresco area. And point four, request the CEO to consider appropriate landscaping. So I think we've talked about it quite significantly, so I won't, I'll reserve my right to have any more discussions. Who seconded it? Councillor Thomas?
Yep.
Would you like to speak to it?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay. So, Councillor Mason, would you like to put up your amendment?
Sure. So the amendment was as per the officer's recommendation for items 1 and 2, so points 1 and 2, and it is removing points 3 and 4 and instead requesting the Chief Executive Officer to work with the owners of the North Street store and explore options to deliver a better customer waiting experience, acknowledging that alfresco dining options are not suitable, and these plans to be brought back to Council for consideration before the reinstatement of the verge.
Do you have someone to second your amendment? Councillor Bulbeck? Thank you. Do you want to talk to it,
Yeah,
Councillor
sure.
Mason?
Sorry. Yes. Despite the parking on North Street being highly sought over, given our advice that these parking bays are causing issues and safety concerns. And this has also been agreed by the owners of the North Street store. I would like to note that NSS, or the North Street store, is widely recognised as a community asset, supported by the wider community for the benefits it brings to Cottesloe residents and visitors alike. It has earned its spot after a number of years as an icon of Cottesloe. Its proximity, as we've heard tonight by one of the residents, used by local real estate agents as a selling point for surrounding streets. We should be encouraging residents to patron this local business, which is essentially the essence of community and in line with our vision for a vibrant Cottesloe. This award-winning takeaway store should not be punished for its success. The premises has been used as non-residential since before the 1960s. North Street is not a quiet residential street. It was changed from a local road to a distributor road, indicating a high level of traffic volume, and obviously this also comes with noise. As we've confirmed, people's voices, whilst they wait for a coffee, do not constitute a noise complaint, as confirmed by Mr. Cleaver. And despite the complaints of nearby residents, we really need to focus on the benefit for the wider community. And obviously, we've also heard supportive voices from local residents as well. Whilst NSS has experienced large volumes of waiting customers during its opening a number of years ago and long lines due to COVID lockdowns, numbers of customers on regular trading days are within normal expectations and no bigger than other successful local cafes which have no restraints. North Street is one of the gateways into Cottesloe, and a more welcoming, aesthetically pleasing environment than bollards and mulch should be desired for the benefit of waiting customers and also our community. So I think that it would be prudent for us to work with NSS about how we can deliver a better result, deserving of this award-winning, beloved community asset and draw card for the suburb. And I also note in the officer's recommendation that the rear parking upgrade is occurring. So with that in mind, a better amenity for waiting customers could be explored.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Bulbeck?
Yes, just to reiterate, I think the challenge is going to be designing a waiting area which doesn't have people sitting at the height of a car, which is clearly a problem. However, we certainly, because that then occludes the view that you get at the intersection of Elizabeth Street. But I think it should be attempted. Rather than try and be, repulsive is the word, trying to repel people from that area, if there's a way of making it quieter and more amenable, but also safe to observe the sight lines, then it makes more sense than putting something ugly there. But and I look forward to seeing what the town comes up with as a proposed way forward.
Thank you.
If we can get this amendment up.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bulbeck. Anyone like to speak against the amendment? Councillor Wilenko?
Thank you. In general, I agree with the proposal being put forward, and I absolutely agree that the North Street store is an asset. But I think we're being a bit unrealistic if we just handball it to the administration to come up with a solution to an area, a waiting area. The fact is, any waiting area where those two cars are currently located is going to become a safety hazard. It's a very busy road. And I note that one of the points you're making is you don't want to see bollards there. Well, I think if we have a waiting area, you're going to have some kind of safety device there because it is a busy road. And in fact, I think having a waiting area there is going to cause both site issues and potentially result in having to have ugly infrastructure. So I'd like to foreshadow another amendment, which is to say, no, you're not going to have a waiting area there. There's a waiting area already, and it's used all the time, and that's not going to change. And the store is a very busy store, and it'll continue to be busy, and it'll continue to have people standing there, just like it does now. But what we say is, no, that's the verge area, and the verge area should be treated like any other verge with a bit of grass, maybe some bushes or something, but it doesn't have to be, the sight lines are the issue. You got people standing there, then you're going to have sight line problems. I think the real issue here is dealing with the parking, because we're going to get rid of 2 parking bays. And already you can see Elizabeth Street is a very busy street when it comes to parking. I went down there the other day, the back lot was full, the street was full right up the street, and the 2 lots are being used. So I think what I'm foreshadowing is an amendment that's going to help to deal with the parking issue, which I think is really what has to be dealt with here. So that's why. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilenko. Anyone else to speak in favour? Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favour of Councillor Mason's amendment. I think it's been well stated that this particular spot and others like it, where people can bump into each other and have a pleasant place to congregate, is a really important part of our community. And there's a need to increase shade in that area too, which I think this will provide a good opportunity for. I think that the principal objection is to using this area as increased waiting area is around the noise, and that principally affects one resident. But I would note that the noise levels would be no different to what they are now, with people already waiting on the verge. And I think the other thing to note is the current motion before the amendment, as it's written, which explicitly forbids the use of this reinstated verge area for any form of customer waiting or al fresco, would then become a council resolution, and would require an absolute majority to revoke and go back. So whereas I think what Councillor Mason is suggesting is a better path forward, which is actually to explore options on how this area can be best used to deliver a safe outcome that addresses the sightlines, addresses safety of people waiting in that area, and provides substantially improved community amenity.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Anyone else speaking against it or for it? I will just speak against the amendment, mainly because of the safety issue, similar to Councillor Wilenko bringing it up. So we remove the car bays because it's a safety issue. If we then have a lot of people standing there to wait, or if we put a bench there or whatever we put there, we're going back to having a safety issue, because we're going to have 30 people waiting on the verge, so therefore you've got a safety issue back there. I take great exception to the third point in the rationale that we shouldn't be punishing the North Street store. In no way are we punishing the North Street store. I mean, we're doing it now. We've learnt we have to move the bays because of an insurance thing. So I certainly don't want to be, I don't think any of us want to punish the North Street store, but our role is to be mindful of things like safety. So I think it's important we look at the safety issues, and if we're going to have people congregating there and encouraging the congregating, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. They're still going to stand there, whatever you put there, lawn, wood chips or whatever, but that's very different from the North Street store want to remove those bays because they want it as an al fresco area. So they've said that. So there's a difference between encouraging it and doing what's the right thing to do. And I agree, like people bump into each other, you chat, but there is an area there, and there still will be an area for them to stand, is very different from actually encouraging it as an al fresco area. And creating shade and things like that, that's heavy infrastructure that will definitely encourage people standing there to eat. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting this amendment, but I do see that there is another one coming. So thank you. Anyone else to speak? Oh, Councillor Heath, sorry.
That's all right. I think we all agree that it's a great spot in our community, and we all agree that the bays should be removed. I was thinking that the words appropriate landscaping, and maybe we're tripping ourselves up, because if we had beautifying landscaping there, I think we could have no bays. The people would still wait as they do now. We wouldn't be taking up any more of the administration's time to negotiate with the North Street store, and we could have a nice entryway into Cottesloe. And I notice right on the opposite corner there is some beautiful planting that's been done on the verge there. So I wonder if, sorry if I get the method wrong, but if I wanted to put in a word that said somehow beautifying landscape, not appropriate, so then the wood chips, the ugly nature of the verge, we wouldn't have an ugly verge. This is a chance to make something really beautiful as an entry into Cottesloe.
So, Councillor Heath, are you looking to change Councillor Mason's amendment?
It's actually the officer's report. Is that impossible?
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I speak against, sorry about that. So speak against Councillor Mason's amendment motion, but foreshadow that I would go back to the officer's report and change the word on number 4 to say appropriate beautifying landscaping, but I'm happy if anyone else would help
well,
me.
we'll deal with this one first,
When we
and
get to
then
that. Okay,
if
that's good.
we need to, we'll get that.
Thank
but
you.
We'll
So-
see what happens. You don't get to sum up on an amendment, do you? Yeah. Not an amendment, I don't think. Sorry, as our expert here, I don't. Do you know, Mr. Khan? Do you sum up an amendment? I can't remember, to be honest. We'll err on the side of, because I don't know. Councillor Mason, would you like to sum up?
I'll be very brief, thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to, perhaps going back to your point, Councillor Harkins, with punish for its success, I'd just like to clarify that, in that I didn't want any sort of punitive means with regards to, no places for coffee cups to be had, and we don't want people being able to stop and have a chat or using bollards and rocks so that they don't sit. So that's what I meant by that. And to sum up, people are going to go to North Street no matter what is there. They are then going to wait for their coffee. The number of people will not change given what we vote tonight. What we can do is stop people standing on the edge of the road, which they currently do. If we could design something which would make it, a safer area than just merely standing over landscape or grass or rocks. At the moment, they hang their heels off the edge of the curb and have cars literally behind them, they're facing backwards to the traffic. If we could design something that accommodates these people in a thoughtful, safe way and provide shade and perhaps sitting instead of standing, because standing would be the sightline issue, then I think that is something that we should work towards.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I'll put the amendment, Councillor Mason's amendment, to the vote. All in favour of the amendment? Those against? And being in the presiding member's chair, I have the joyous task of the casting vote, and I will stick with the officer's recommendation. So the amendment is lost. And Councillor Wellenko, you had an amendment?
Thank you. If I might put another amendment up. The proposed amendment is to, the minor, just insert the word "the" in item 1 before North Street, but more substantially to insert the words "and to develop a parking plan for the store in item 4. Now, I'm happy to also incorporate, if we want to, rather than appropriate landscaping, beautifying, but I'm not quite sure if that's,
Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
sorry, do I have a seconder for my amendment? Good question.
Oh, Councillor Bullbeck.
Thank you.
So do you want to talk to that first and
Sure,
then we'll
yeah, okay,
deal
and
with
then
the
we'll deal with
extra
that.
one?
Okay. Clearly, we've ventilated, there's a long history here of these issues. I put my reasons forward as to why I think we have to continue to say that they cannot use the verge as a form of customer waiting, because I think it comes down fundamentally to a safety issue. But I think the real issue here is parking, and because we are going to lose 2 bays, I'm proposing that the Chief Executive Officer develop a parking plan for the store, which I would anticipate would include looking at both the lot behind, that's on the property, and Elizabeth Street itself, and may include such things as looking at angle parking on Elizabeth Street, for example, which could increase, if it's possible, could increase the amount of parking there quite substantially. So I think the idea is to step back and say, okay, we want to encourage the store. The store is a very valuable asset to the community. As we heard from a community member, it draws people to the community. So let's take the opportunity then to see if there isn't another way to help resolve some of the issues that it creates. It's not going to necessarily resolve the noise issue, which I don't think is going to change, quite frankly, but it may help to resolve some of the parking issues.
Thank you, Councillor Wilenko. Councillor Bullbeck, you seconded it?
Yes, I did. So I think, something I think accepting the proposal to consider beautifying landscaping, and you can have, or biodiverse landscaping, you can have a form of landscaping that actually makes the verge repulsive and not desirable to go and sit on. So I think that's possible. You can also have a little hedge around the verge that secures the safety of the people who may be sitting on benches, if that's a way. So I think there are ways to be beautiful, safe and effective, and we can't sort it out here, and that's not our job. I think we can get a response from the administration. I think, and also to support the parking plan, clearly parking in behind the store, which was meant to be going on for a long time and hasn't been resolved yet, is one way of resolving it. Another possibility to look at, I'm not sure whether it can be part of a parking plan, but is to have a no right turn into North Street out of Elizabeth Street. So whether that could also be part of the consideration of the parking plan. And it might be a necessity if we're going to do angle parking along Elizabeth Street, which might have to become a one-way street. So I think, this would open up a very large can of worms.
Thank you, Councillor Bullbeck. Councillor Heath, did you want to discuss a slight addition to see if Councillor Wilenko would accept that?
Yes, so to just use words green, native, beautifying landscaping.
So what point is this?
In number 4, I don't have count of the officer's recommendation. Yep.
Would you consider adding with shade?
Just let's see what you're coming up with, Councillor Heath. What are you wishing to say?
I was thinking low because it needs to be safe with the sight lines. So any sort of shade structures I'm thinking would affect the sight lines, which would be a dangerous thing to do when we've been told we need to preserve those sight lines. So, green beautifying native landscaping, which preserves the required sight lines. No? Okay. You like appropriate, okay. Using native landscaping.
Are you trying to?
I'm trying to
get
amend.
Councillor Wilenko to accept that amendment. I
Well,
thought he had.
Meanwhile,
When I
we'll
voted.
keep going. Yeah, we'll keep going, and then you can do another one. Because I'd like to know if you'd like to incorporate a slight amendment to your amendment, Councillor Wilenko, in point 3, where it says, do not permit the use of the reinstated verge area. Currently it says, for any form of customer waiting. I would like the word, instead of saying any form, just say for any formal area of customer waiting? Because it's obvious the people are going to wait there. We're not going to have police there to stop them, so it's just a formal waiting area. So, formal, yeah, formal area. So they can stand there. Can't do anything about that. But as councillor, so first of all, would you incorporate that into your? Okay, and councillor Bulbeck, would you accept that?
Well, I thought I was seconding a beautifying amendment rather than an appropriate amendment, but I
You
guess...
seconded councillor Wilenko's
Yeah,
amendment.
but I thought beautifying had been added in, but that's all right,
Oh,
I'll accept.
can always add it in.
There is a difference.
Are you happy to incorporate those
Your
words?
amendment's fine.
Okay, so just to clarify, the amendment we're talking about now is councillor Wilenko's amendment, and as is written, plus in point 3 it says, does not permit the use of reinstated verge area for any formal area of customer waiting and alfresco dining. Okay. Ms. Pilkington, you've got that? Okay. Would anyone like to speak against? We've had 4. Would like councillor Mason?
Yes, I'd like to speak against this amendment. I am a little confused how 3 and 4 differs if there's no formal customer waiting area, but you'd like appropriate, beautiful landscaping. I don't understand. But I think, moreover, that the issue is that Councillor Wilenko is wanting to develop a parking plan, and I think that the officer's recommendation on page 41 notes that Council is to note that the rear parking upgrade formed part of the NSS development approval, and the administration is working with the proponent to hasten this and the other requirements previously conditioned. So I don't understand why we need point 4, because that is already happening. I also don't believe that the community would want us to eat into their verge and have angle parking on Elizabeth Street, as a lot of those verges already have do not stand and stone things so that people can't use their verge. So I'm against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone speaking in favour of, anyone else to speak in favour of the amendment? I will speak in favour of the amendment. We've talked about the saying you can't have formal waiting area, but people will still wait there. And perhaps you can, as someone suggested earlier, a low hedge of something so that people aren't, because as Councillor Mason pointed out, currently they're on the very edge of the parking bays with their, their feet half into the parking bay. So now they'll be on the very edge of North Street with their feet half into North Street. So if we do put perhaps a low hedging or low plants around the edge of North Street, they're not going to fall into North Street, but they could still wait around for their coffee. Well, we can't stop them waiting around for the coffees, nor should we, so that's fine. I think the parking plan, there was talk of angled parking further up, not taking, I think you were meaning, correct me if I'm wrong, that looking at just quite close to the entrance where there's currently 2 or 3 bays, and there was talk of at one point of turning those into angled parking. So, I mean, I think it's just worth pursuing to see if we can come up with a solution to perhaps help the parking in that area. So for those reasons, I will be supporting the amendment. Anyone else to speak in favour or against? Councillor Thomas? You wanted to speak?
Yeah, I'll speak against. Basically, I don't think a parking plan is needed, but I do support the change to the formal area. So if this amendment doesn't get up, I think we should foreshadow to add that one in.
Okay, so we'll put Councillor Wilenko's amendment with the slight addition of my wording. So it's 1 as is, 2 as is, 3 is including any formal customer waiting. and al fresco. So it's just adding the word of, instead of any form, it's changing it to any formal. Okay, so I'll put that amendment to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Bullbeck, Heath, Wilenko and Harkins. Those against? Mason and Thomas. So that amendment is carried. Did you, Councillor Heath, did you have another amendment?
Yes, I'll put in my
Okay.
beautifying all native verge. So,
Right, so what would your wording be?
request number as is, as we have decided. Number 4, request the chief officer to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native verge or native planted verge, and yes.
To create a native planted verge.
Just that is and
Okay.
the rationale, just to ensure that we don't have.
Oh, so
bollard-
I'll just ask if you
sorry.
have a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bullbeck. Okay. Councillor Heath?
I just wanted to ensure that we don't have the wood chips or the bollards, which could potentially be appropriate landscaping. I think this is a chance to have a lovely, welcoming native planted verge as you drive down North Street into Cottesloe. There is some nice planting on the verge across the road. We all, I think, would like a greener Cottesloe, and putting bollards and wood chips is not meeting those expectations, and more low plantings that don't get in the way of the sightline, so it's safe for people leaving Elizabeth Street, can only be a win-win for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Councillor Bullbeck, you seconded it. Did you want to speak to it?
And I think it would be wonderful to have some biodiversity and native verge there. I think it's also the case that at the back end of what is presently the off-street parking is not interfering with the sightline, so we could even consider putting in some trees there and have some shade as well. So there's a possibility of meeting a lot of objectives here.
Thank you. Speak against it?
I actually have a question, if I might. Because they're currently parking bays, obviously the town maintains, but generally, as I understand, although the town owns the verge, it's the owner of the property that maintains the verge. So is it the case that if we were to require that local native plants be put in there, that then the owner would be responsible for maintaining that planting?
So to the officers, who's the guru on planting?
Through the chair, under the street tree policy, because this is a form of green infrastructure, so any green infrastructure that is within the town's corridor or verge is the responsibility of the town to maintain. Yeah.
That was a good question, Councillor Wilenko. And you're speaking, where am I up to? Against, am I?
Can I ask
Oh,
a
it's a
question
question.
as well? Would Councillor Heath be interested in meaning that the other verge along Elizabeth Street that currently is mulch and bollards, could that have the same treatment?
Yes, I think we could say, request the Chief Executive Officer to consider landscaping to create a native verge for the full length of North Street in front of, but full frontage of the Northeast Stall, that's not currently.
Well, it's the
Car
corner.
park, it's the-
You mean the corner of, yeah. So we're dealing with the verge on North Street, but you're talking about the verge actually on Elizabeth.
It is the frontage of the store though, because
Yeah.
it faces the.
It's on that corner.
Yes, there is a,
yeah.
does the wood chipping currently go round the corner to
It
Elizabeth
does,
Street?
it does with bollards.
I mean, this has nothing to do with the bays. Can we bring that in? We can sneak it in. Lorraine's not here.
Yeah, it's related to the property, so I think you can, yes.
So did you want to add wording, Councillor Heath, that to create, so number 4, requests the CEO to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge.
Along North Street and Elizabeth Street.
Well, the
except
direct
where
corner.
The car parks
Yeah,
are
we
on
need to be a bit
Elizabeth Street.
specific.
Where current mulch is, where
Yeah.
current,
With
directly opposite the entrance.
Want to help?
I think the full frontage of the North Street store on North Street in Elizabeth.
the full verge of the
Would you-
North Street store.
Well, the corner. It's the corner
frontage,
verge.
the frontage
Yeah.
of the store on both North and Elizabeth Street.
Planted verge along, what did you say? Have you got it, Jacqueline?
Request the Chief Executive Officer to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge along North Street and around the corner to Elizabeth Street.
Well, I think we need to be more specific than that. So,
Okay.
Can I
Jacqueline, just one sec.
point of order? Can I point out that that would cut across then developing a parking plan? Because then that area would not be available for parking.
Since it's been considered, maybe they, and I agree, taking into account the need for a parking plan with that on here.
'Cause
Now we're getting really-
we're losing it a bit because you wouldn't ever have a parking right on the corner.
Exactly.
So,
Is it
yeah, I know, but I'm agreeing with Councillor Wilenko. So back to what it said.
With the front part, and then to create a native appropriate landscaping.
Native planted verge.
Native planted, appropriate to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge along North Street.
At the corner of the North Street store or something. You need to narrow it down, otherwise we're talking about the whole of North Street and the whole of Elizabeth Street.
Along North Street in front of the North Street store.
And Elizabeth.
Okay, so appropriate landscaping to create a native, native verge in front of North Street store and Elizabeth Street.
Native
Appropriate
planted,
landscaping to create a native verge in front of North Street store and Elizabeth Street.
no,
Yeah.
native planted verge along the frontage of the North Street store.
On North and Elizabeth Streets.
Where the store where is? In front of.
Yes, North Street and Elizabeth Street is front of North Street, so it limits it to the front of the store and not outside.
So, Mr. Cleaver, you've got a mic, so do you mean, can you
I
repeat?
read that back. So it's to create appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge in front of North Street and Elizabeth Street in front of the North Street store.
It's still quite, no, not quite right.
Wish I could see it.
Hold on, let's, yeah.
So consider landscaping to create a native verge,
Native planted verge.
Planted verge
planted verge along Elizabeth
in front of North Street.
in front of the North Street store.
Respectfully, I don't think we have to say Elizabeth, because if it's along North Street, that includes that little wraparound bit on the corner.
To replace the current mulch and bollards.
Oh, I don't mean to remove the bollards. I don't mean to remove the bollards, because they're to keep people safe, that from, if they did hang out there.
So,
Request the Chief Officer to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge along the frontage of the North Street store on North Street.
Appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge along the frontage of the North Street store on North Street.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Councillor Heath? Right. So that is the amendment that you've put up. And who seconded it? Councillor Bulbeck seconded it, but you've both spoken to it, haven't you? Anyone like to speak against that motion, that amendment? Anyone like to speak in favour of that amendment? I will speak in favour of it. I think it's, can't believe I'm about to say well worded, meaning the native planted verge, I think is a great idea of having a nice treatment when you come in to, as someone said, I think Councillor Mason said earlier on, arriving at the town. I think that it could be a beautifully planted verge. And contrary to me being quoted in the paper, I think removing the wood chips is a good idea, and I think it will be aesthetically pleasing. We can put low creepers and all sorts of things there. So I think it's a good solution and adds to Councillor Wilenko's original amendments. Anyone else to speak? So I spoke in favour. Anyone to speak against it? Councillor...
Sorry, can we just have it read out again? Just so
Yeah,
we know what...
absolutely. Mr Cleaver, could you read it out because you have a microphone? Just number 4.
Just that part, and then go into appropriate.
So request the Chief Executive Officer to consider appropriate landscaping to create a native planted verge along the frontage of the North Street store on North Street.
Yep, that's already there.
And to develop a parking plan for the store as part of the reinstatement.
Okay. Councillor Mason, would you like to speak?
I'm going to speak against it because we're not currently including where we have mulch now. Immediately outside the front door on the Elizabeth Street side, before the current 2 parking bays, which could be now explored to be diagonal, there is mulch and bollard, 4 curved bollards. So if that was to be included, to be beautified, then I could support this amendment.
Through the Chair, I think the administration take it that includes virtually the entire verge.
Yeah, I would assume that they would make that decision. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I support the amendment. I have a question or a consideration. Native planted verge, and whether trees fit into that. So there was, I guess I would hope that trees aren't excluded based on the wording of this, and they can be considered as to whether they will obstruct the sight line based on their narrow, size, versus, I think, the great benefit that would be gained from having some shady trees in that area.
So through myself, to Mr Khan, I'm assuming by appropriate you'd look at height and species, and would you like to speak to that?
Through the chair, my understanding is we're looking at green, native, low understory planting. With trees, it can be a challenge because when they measure sight distance, it's normally at a height of 1.2 meters. With trees, they tend to grow sort of higher than 1.2 meters. You've got the stem of the tree that may cause some obstruction to sight distance. Preferably, if we can, we recommend that we avoid trees at corners like this and go with understory planting so as to be able to preserve the safety of the intersection.
Thank you, Mr Khan. Well, you've already spoken. Oh, you can ask a question. Yep.
Yes. Can I please follow up on Councillor Thomas's question and ask, through the chair, Mr Khan, would this exclude North Street Store from perhaps putting up an umbrella if it didn't, for shade, to provide shade if it didn't interfere with the sightlines?
Mr Cleaver's going to answer that.
The umbrella would form part of an alfresco application, and council's already resolved that not to approve the alfresco.
Okay, I think we'll put it to the vote. So we're putting to the vote, this is councillor Heath's number 4 about the native planted verge.
Did I get to sum up?
Oh, no, yes, you didn't. So, yeah, technically, but we let councillor Mason, so
Oh, okay, sorry.
Go
Well,
ahead.
Just quickly, yes, what I mean by this, and I think everyone's keen on, is all the mulched areas will have lovely green native planting as deemed appropriate by the administration.
thank you.
That, for the frontage of the North Street store.
Okay. Thank you, councillor Heath. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of this amendment? That is unanimous. Thank you. Oi, oi, oi. All right, so the mayor can have the chair back. Have we? Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, good point. Thank you. So, believe it or not, that was all just amendments. So, I think I put forward the motion, did I not? And no, we're still doing it, councillor. So who seconded it?
Councillor Thomas, I think.
Okay, so I am certainly not going to speak to it. Councillor Thomas, you seconded it. Anything to say? No. So we'll put it to the vote. This is the substantive, including the amendments from Councillor Wilenko and Councillor Heath. So we're putting that to the vote. All those in favour of the substantive? It's Harkins, Wilenko, Heath, Bulbeck and Thomas. Those against is Councillor Mason. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now we are done. Yes, thank you.
I was just trying to challenge you, Melissa, sorry.
Yeah, you're putting me through the paces there.
Sorry, I'm trying to
I got a raw deal there.
bubbles about greening.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, thanks. What is it you don't for an amendment? I was pretty sure. I should have stopped. I doubted myself, but yeah, I know. But and I didn't think because I'm sure, like councillor motion, yes, and then you don't. I was pretty sure. Everyone got to sit back. No.
Thank you.
Is that a spare water, Brad?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want sparkling, don't you?
Thank you. Gee.
Sorry, that was on the run.
Yeah. No, we got there in the end and it actually, it was a good result because we actually too. And it's not too shiny in the sun, you know. I think we had it all resolved itself.
I needed a plan.
Yeah.
That corner. Well, I had it here. Here it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, administration.
Which one?
You can work it out.
Oh, we can fill me in on that later. Right. Oh, my seat's nice and warm. As you might
Hot
expect.
seat too.
It's a long session. Where's my... no, I'm looking for the running tally of... yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Harkins. Let me just get my bearings. We are now turning to consider items that have been recommended to be considered behind closed doors. That's 13.1.1, 13.1.2, 13.1.3, 13.1.4, 13.1.4, and the 12.2. Thank you. So I move that we close the meeting for consideration of those items. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilinko, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. So we will close the meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, we do have a new, right. Can we just keep, what I'm going to ask elected members, please to remember, we're still in the meeting. I'm going to read these. I'd appreciate if we could have order while I get through. It is a new thing and it is a good point. It's live stream, so we don't know who's at home listening. So we should, you might, yes?
Are you happy for us to come out of closed doors?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Are we back now? Thank you. So now that we are in open meeting, there are no members of the public present, but for the benefit of community members viewing, can I have order, please? Live streaming. I will read the resolutions that Council passed in the closed session of the meeting. On item 12.2, Chief Executive Officer Performance Review, the resolution of Council is as follows, that Council notes that the appraisal of Mr Matthew Scott, Chief Executive Officer, has been completed for the period of July 23 to June 24. 2, endorses by absolute majority the findings of the confidential summary report dated August 24 as circulated to the elected members, as presented by Price Consulting Group, and thanks Mr Scott for his efforts. 3, resolves that Mr Scott's total remuneration package for the coming year remains unchanged. And 4, approves the CEO's performance criteria for the 24-25 period as per attachment 1 in brackets as circulated to elected members, close bracket, subject to Council's agreed changes. And that was passed unanimously. The next item is item 13.1.1, supply and laying of asphalt and road profiling rescindment, moved by absolute majority, that Council 1, revokes Resolution OCM 074 of 2024 in accordance with Regulation 10, Local Government Administration Regulation 1996, and 2, rejects all tenders. Item 13.1.2, 126 Railway Street Regulation 17 Licence Agreement, Council's resolution passed unanimously, that Council 1 endorses the attached Regulation 17 agreement for the installation of ground anchors under the road reserve adjacent to 126 Railway Street, and 2, authorises the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to sign the attached agreement and affix the town's common seal if required, subject to the proponent paying all legal costs to prepare the attached document. 13.1.3, Civil Concrete Works Tender Recommendation. Council's resolution passed unanimously is that Council 1 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to award the Civil Contract Works tender to Tenderer A, mentioned in the Officer's recommendation in brief session. 2, authorises A, the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract and affix the town's common seal if required. B, Chief Executive Officer or delegate to manage the Civil Concrete Works contract, including provision of possible variations, provided the variation is necessary in order for the goods or services to be supplied, does not change the general scope of the contract, and is managed within the allotted budget allocation. And C, Mayor, elected members and the town's administration may disclose the identity of the successful tenderer, and the successful tenderer is... Sorry? Can you show me where that... And the... I can't read that. No, here. And the successful tenderer is Miraplex Group Pty Ltd. Then the final item, 13.1.4, lifeguard services tender. Council's resolution is that Council 1 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to award the lifeguard services tender to tenderer A, mentioned in the officer recommendation in brief section, and 2, authorises the A, Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract and affix the town's common seal if required. B, Chief Executive Officer or delegate to manage the life services contract, including provision of possible variations, provided the variation is necessary in order for the goods or services to be supplied, does not change the general scope of the contract, and is managed within the allotted budget allocation. And C, Mayor, elected members and the town's administration may disclose the identity of the successful tenderer, and the successful tenderer is, Mr. Khan, the successful tenderer is tender, Surf Life Saving.
It's Surf Life Saving WA.
Surf Life Saving WA. Just wanted to make sure that I got the name correct. All the meetings were passed in the closed section of the meeting, and that is all business on the agenda. So I'll close the meeting now at 8:38. Thank you.